saw in the gospel, we have a time when the people are questioning, the apostles and disciples are questioning Jesus whether they should destroy those who do not care about what he wants, and they've sort of rejected Jesus, and Jesus does not allow them to destroy him, which I think that's a good thing for us to understand when we have people who reject the faith or don't accept, I should say, Christianity, that Jesus' response is not to call down fire in heaven upon them to consume them. But anyway, one of the things that I think is important about today's first reading is, we're reading through the book of Job. Very important book, right? For us who want to understand evil, want to understand why things happen, why is there suffering in this world, why do bad things happen to good people? The Bible has a book specifically to discuss that, and a lot of times we're not aware of it. But the goal for us as Christians is to have what's called a biblical faith. We have the faith of the Bible, and a lot of times if we're not familiar with the Bible, we think we have faith, but it's a different kind of faith. It might be the faith that our parents told us. It might be a faith that was kind of developed in a certain group of people, but it's not biblical faith. And what I mean by that is that the faith of, look at those who are in the Bible and how they responded in faith. And today we have a book, and we have Job, who's, if you were here yesterday at Mass, you know that there was this decision that we would see if Job, was a test to see if Job would remain faithful or would he turn away from God. And so he loses everything, the first part of it. And now what he does is lament, and he complains. And he says, perish the day I was born. The night when they said, the child's a boy. He said, end this day. He said, why did I not perish at birth? Why did I not just die when I was at birth? And so he's sort of lamenting, and he's complaining about the situation in which he finds, and he wish he were dead, and why was I not buried away like the untimely birth, like babies that had never seen the light, therefore wherefore the knees received me, he's sitting on the knee of a child. I should have been laid down then, rather than go through what I'm going through. And I guess what happens is when you read the scriptures, you see a very human experience. I mean, the guy is suffering. And so there's a sense that he's crying out to God. I wish I had never been born. My life stinks right now. This is so much pain I'm in. And I think that oftentimes when I hear people who go and I go and anoint them, they say, she's such an angel. She never complains. Right? As if, that there's the big virtue of never complaining. But of course, it can get tiring being around people who complain all the time for no reason. But when you have a reason to complain, that you see that's what's happening in the gospel, in the readings, in the book of Job. And then we have a whole section of Psalms that are called lament Psalms, where you're just complaining to God about how awful things are right now for whatever reason. And that it seems to be an acceptable relationship or response to the situation in which we find ourselves. But we have sometimes, and maybe even some of you are saying, I don't know if I believe that because I've been taught something different. Like I can't really complain to God. I shouldn't do that because that's not very nice to God, and yet what happens is what we have is a soul, and we have scriptures that do that, a soul that reaches out and complains and calls upon God. What we see is they never curse God, they never get angry at God, but they do question and ask and complain, and why is this happening to me, and what are you doing to me, Lord? Come. But it always ends with confidence that God knows what he's doing, so give me the courage I need to withstand it. However, it doesn't forget the first part of it. And I guess that, to me, is what makes the scriptures so human. But if we don't read the scriptures, then we have a difficult time kind of reconciling how we feel as human beings and what we want to do, and then feeling like, I can't do that because that's not right. I need, and some of this stuff comes from the way we've been formed that's not biblical, because I always tell people, look, your life is terrible, you're in lots of pain, complain to God. Complain to God the way Job did, find some Psalms in the Old Testament and read those over and over again and pray those, because that's our Bible, that's the Word of God. So I think that perfectly acceptable. But I remember doing that with one guy who had a very difficult life, and he just could not read those Psalms and say that that's not me. And I said, well, it's the Scriptures. So I know that it can be difficult because it's often hard to do something, especially if we see it in the Bible, of something that it's been ingrained in us. And I think that a real relationship with God is sometimes to tell God all your woes and wonder, why did you give me this life in the first place when I'm going through such difficulty and pain? But it always ends with, but I trust in you, God. Just get me through this, and help me know why you're making me do these kinds of things seem to happen to me. This is only the beginning of Job, because we got a lot more to do with Job, and a lot more to hear about him and his struggles. And hopefully we can see that God is teaching us through his word about how to be a person of deep faith, and yet still kind of question a lot of things that seem to happen to us.